So let's. I'm waiting for Substack to come up.
Oh, you probably need me to monitor some spots too, right?
Yeah, I watch Spectra and YouTube. We can watch YouTube from in here, but
I don't have an account on Spectra yet, so it's not like I can even do anything there.
I'll watch it. I'll watch the Spectra. I'll watch the Spectra account.
I've got Stream Place up.
Anything there? I'll yeah. I'll watch the Spectra chat and the Stream Place chat. I don't expect the Stream Place chat to blow up or whatever, but
you want me to watch Substack?
Yeah, and we have people filtering in, so we'll just go right into it. Life survival. Hi, I'm Wendy the Druid. This is my co-host Sarah the Stoic. Who's very stoic, by the way. But I figure we'll just talk right into today's digest. So when I was writing the digest this morning, the big thing that hit me was the fact that Tom Homan and Trump have spinelessly said they are going to pull forces out of Minneapolis and out of Minnesota, which, as far as everyone that I know is concerned, means they're going right into Philly. They're going right into Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Right. And there's a problem with this. The problem with this is that Paul Birdsong and Robert Ware, who are both Black Panthers that live in New England, specifically near Philadelphia, have said that the thing that is happening with ICE, that wouldn't have happened if we were there. Not a single person would have gotten touched. So that's one of the current leaders of the Black Panthers. And so the Black Panthers aren't fucking around. They're literally going to show up in front of ICE if they go into Pennsylvania, and somebody's going to get killed.
Oof. This is escalating.
Yeah.
More than it already has.
Yeah, it's escalating like hugely so. And so, it's like, well, shit. How the fuck did we get here? And so I did a little research about the Panthers. I mean, I have historical context about the Black Panthers. And so Robert Ware, who is the leader of the San Diego Black Panther Party, he basically said, the duty of the Panthers is to fight injustice and engage in work that brings the community together. That's why the Black Panthers exist. And so when they come for your neighbors, are you going to answer the door? Or will you be the neighbor? And at its core, the Black Panther Party, much like other individuals in that strata, are saying you need to choose. You either need to stand up and fight or walk away. And that's hard because it means showing up, and it means being, it means bodies between violence and the vulnerable. And it means taking care of people that need to be taken care of, and walking people around. It means being the protection that we've been taught to expect from institutions that are only protecting power and wealth and prestige. So, when Monday morning rolls around, pack an extra granola bar. Um, when you're out in public and you see someone that's in trouble, ask them if they're okay. Um, know your neighbors' names before ICE finds out what they are. Because that's the hard work. And so that begs the question. When you hear trouble brewing nearby, not on a screen, but in your actual physical radius, what does your body do before your brain catches up? From my experience, there's a half a second before a thought kicks in for me. A door slams too hard in a hall, someone's crying in a parking lot, raised voices through the wall. In that sliver of time, my nervous system has already made the choice. Lean towards the window, or turn up the TV and ignore it. Move towards the door, or suddenly need to check your phone. That isn't about judgment. It's about noticing the pattern that your body has learned over time. And the flinch that pulls you away can become the flinch that pulls you toward. But first, you have to catch yourself in the act. You feel the direction your weight shifts before you've decided to do anything. That automatic response is raw material. And so, what is it right now, today? And when did you learn to behave that way? Michael, we're talking about social injustice. So my question to you, Sarah, then becomes, do the people in your immediate orbit, your building, your block, people that you run into when you go to work, do they know you as someone who shows up? Or do they know you as someone who keeps to themselves?
I mean, if they know me as somebody who keeps to myself, then they don't know me.
Right. Because you do show up.
The first thing that came to mind when you were talking about this was something that happened today after I got home from work. Me and my child are sitting in the living room and some strange noises were happening outside. Now, it sounded like somebody was shoveling, but nobody should be shoveling my front walk. Like, it's already been shoveled.
Right.
And Kate is immediately like, why did you go and look out the window? Well, I want to know what's going on. I want to know why it sounds like there's somebody with a shovel on my front porch. So, like, we had a little disagreement about, like, where it actually sounded it was coming from. But, that's what you do. Like, you keep an eye out for your neighbors. It's not the first time. It wouldn't be the first time that some neighbors got into a verbal altercation. And I didn't have to intervene, but I definitely stood on my porch and made sure it was obvious that I was witnessing what was going on.
Right.
Because it never got to the point where, intervention was needed. But sometimes just an outside party is all it takes to keep it from escalating.
Right. Because sometimes presence itself is enough to keep that going. And so we feed into this narrative ourselves internally, out of the scope of self-preservation. And self-preservation feels violent. and it feels aggressive. And there are times that self-preservation doesn't feel right. And that's difficult to reconcile as a person who has abuse history, and I have extensive abuse history. I have a difficult time self-indulging, um, and I have a difficult time caring for myself as a person. It's easier to care for other people, but when it comes to my own well-being and my own, um, you know, my own internalized self, um, I have problems with that, and so that becomes profoundly difficult for me. It's just it hurts. Um, just yesterday, I was dealing with a work situation, and in that work situation, um, there was a lot of profoundly negative and aggressive communication because of a stupid issue. And so when I came out of that issue, I not even when I came out of it, I was in the middle of it. And I was like, okay, if this is going to continue, I'm going to be here until 8 or 9 o'clock at night dealing with this. And so I went to my leadership and I said, look, I do not want to be here until 9 o'clock at night. Not that I am against, as a 53-year-old info security engineer, against working long hours. I'm not. That day I just didn't want to do it. And so I agreed to take a task that required me to go into another area of town to deal with the situation. So, I got on the train and I went down to Buckhead, and I had the conference call on my phone. My phone died. And so, I became unlocatable. And the people who love me and who care about me were unable to reach me. And in the time that we are in now, that's not something you don't want to be unfindable, unreachable. And so, when I got off the train in Buckhead to go and handle the situation, one, my phone was dead. Two, I came up the train catwalk to go out onto the street to walk to the location, and there was this guy standing there. And the guy looked at me. I was in full makeup, and I had my head wrap on, and my boobs were out to here and shit. And so he looks at me and he immediately calls me a faggot and a sissy and all this shit. And I was so, I don't know, I was so like at the bottom of the bucket that I snapped and I just didn't care. I walked up to him and I said, hey, you're going to have to try a lot fucking harder with shit like that, because I've been listening to that shit for years. My skin is a hell of a lot more thick than what the fuck is coming out of your mouth. And his words to me were, well, you know what? I got a knife and I'm going to stab you. You better kill me on the first shot, because if you don't, I'm going to fucking kill you right here. And I don't care. I literally do not care. And the look on his face was just stunned. And he sort of was like, well, you a fucking faggot and yada, yada, whatever. And yeah, put up or shut up. And I took a step forward and he backed down. And I said, that's what I thought. And I turned around and I walked off because I just didn't give a shit. I literally just did not care. And it was hard. I shouldn't have turned around. That was stupid. That was really fucking dumb. Because he could have just stabbed me right there and that would have been it. You know, one punch to the kidneys and we're done. But I just didn't give a shit. And that's painful. Caring for myself is not self-indulgent. It's self-preservation. And that's an act of warfare, and it is something that I have a hard time with. Rest is resistance. When the system needs you exhausted, the guy on the street that's calling you a cocksucker and a sissy and a faggot and all the other gay and trans slurs that a person can say. You have to take care of yourself. The extra hour of sleep instead of scrolling through bullshit on your phone, or the therapy appointment you actually keep, or saying no to someone that you don't apologize for. They want us depleted, and they want us running on fumes because that makes us compliant. And it makes organizing ourselves difficult. It makes doing the things that we need to do to protect ourselves feel like a fantasy that we just can't do. But you, Sarah, you hydrated and slept and observing boundaries intact, you're dangerous. Hell, I'm dangerous. When you have the capacity to see clearly and to resist strategically and to sustain the long game, it comes out better in the end. So self-care is just, that's a radical idea. The nap you needed to take, it was needed, and that was radical. The boundary that you observe, that's resistance. And so the eighth glass of water is how you stay in the fight long enough to win it. Self-care isn't selfish. It's how you become the ancestor your future self will thank much later and on the line. And so, if you tracked your energy like a bank account, who or what would be making withdrawals? And would you have authorized those transactions? So as a child, I would tell you no. I didn't want Zoe to withdraw from my bank account for the things that she did. I wouldn't know. But some withdrawals, I would just gladly sign off. It's my work that matters. That I positively affected somebody at work. That I helped somebody achieve something. Those are all, I would gladly withdraw from my bank account to account for those things. And I would, I would agree with those things. The guilt that runs background your processes all day, your batteries, it's not worth it. You just have to be granular. You have to be honest. And so what's pulling from the account that you never actually agreed to fund? Whose negativity are you carrying because of it? So that means I get to ask you, what truth would become impossible to ignore if you weren't too depleted to deal with it or sit with it?
I mean, that's assuming that I'm too depleted to deal with it.
That's right. Because you're going to be.
Well, maybe sometime in the future I am, but that's not to say that I am now.
Well, what's the thing that you don't deal with?
That I don't deal with? That I should?
Yes.
Hmm.
I know for a fact there are a few things, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
I mean, there's two big things, but those are at least one of them is weather blocked, and the other is monetarily blocked.
Okay. Pick one.
What, the divorce?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's monetarily blocked.
And
I
what's your weather block?
Selling the house.
No, well, those are both interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you feel like you are at this point?
With both of those?
Yeah.
Waiting.
Because you're ready for it to happen.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because neither that relationship nor the house do anything to sustain me at this point.
What do you need to sustain?
I don't know.
Sure you do.
Sure I do.
You wouldn't say that those are blocked if you didn't know what it was that you do need to sustain you. You don't have to talk about whoever it is, but you have a relationship, don't you?
I suppose I do.
Does that relationship sustain you?
Yes.
Why? Why does it?
Consistency, openness, reciprocation.
That's an interesting paradigm. You get that from the relationship you have?
The one that I'm exiting?
No. Why not?
I don't know. And at one point I did, and I don't know when it stopped.
The relationship that you have now, when you compare that to the relationship that you're exiting, what makes those two relationships different? I'll even ask an easier question. The reciprocation and the affirmation and the validation that you get from the relationship that you have now, did you ever get that in the relationship that you're leaving?
Not to the same extent.
Why not?
I think it became a situation of being taken for granted very quickly.
So there was supposed to be growth in that relationship, and it just never happened.
Right.
But did that appreciation exist in that relationship, even if that growth never happened?
I think for the first 2 years it might have, and then we had a kid, so things changed. And within 2 years of that event happening, things kind of shifted for the worst. That was probably the first time I considered leaving.
So here's the thing. Tired people can only do the next task, survive the next hour. That's useful if you need to keep a dysfunctional relationship working, because you're not thinking many steps ahead. You're only thinking one step ahead because you're just too exhausted to do anything about it. So then you have to ask yourself, what's waiting in the quiet? What would surface if you had 3 days of no obligations and no validations and no nothing else? Would you have realized then that everything stopped? I believe the answer is yes, because you're telling me that there was a time that you considered leaving before.
Yeah, I'd say the answer would be yes.
Okay. So how does that differ from the relationship you're trying to have now?
I mean, I guess I'm going into it knowing more than I knew then, knowing more about myself, more about what, I don't know. Just,
do they treat you better than the relationship you're leaving?
I think so.
Why?
More open communication. I don't have to emotionally regulate for anybody.
Well, I mean, emotional regulation is a challenge.
Like, with the relationship that I'm leaving, it got to the point where there was, like, I literally could not talk about certain things because it would set him off. Whether that be spiraling or temper tantrum.
So what makes your newer relationship not that?
I think having the opportunity to come into it knowing what I now know about myself and being able to recognize my own patterns and course correct before I get into a negative pattern with the new relationship. And being able to discuss it openly before it gets to a point where it can't be repaired. Because, like, after 4 years, it's difficult to repair anything. And 4 years seems like nothing at that point, considering it was 22 years at this point.
I mean, that's the nature of long relationships.
I'll tell you, the only reason that made it that long was because most of it was spent working opposite shifts.
So you just never see them.
Right. We were like ships passing in the night. We only saw each other's on Sunday.
But you loved him.
I suppose I did.
It's easy to love folly. I hate to compartmentalize it to that, but it is. And if you put effort into a relationship, it doesn't matter what that relationship is, male, female, trans, queer, ace, whatever. What you put into that relationship versus what you get out of that relationship is what becomes important. You give as much as you get, and you get as much as you give back. I mean, that's the nature of any relationship. But at its core, you still have to self-care. Do you feel like the relationship you are in now allows you to self-care?
I think so.
I mean, do they care?
I would say so.
Well, why would you say that?
I mean, regular check-ins, communication, and outright saying so.
Gosh, you get that much communication? There are some people that don't get that communication at all. I'd
That's
say you're probably
unfortunate.
doing better than most people if that is the case. I mean, if you get daily communication out of your relationship, hell, you can deal with anything. You can deal with anything. You won't like it, but you can deal with it. You won't like it, but you can deal with it.
I mean, sometimes your ability to take on things is only as strong as your support.
But do you feel supported in that relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
I sense hesitation.
No, just giving it thorough thought.
A thorough thought. Okay. No pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. Marsha P. Johnson. They want us to beg for scraps, a parade permit, a non-discrimination clause, the right to exist. Only if we are polite about it. But Marsha Johnson threw bricks at people, not pleasantries. She didn't ask Stonewall's permission to riot. She didn't wait for the state to protect trans women before she started housing them herself, because she was doing the same thing. Liberation isn't something they grant when you've been good enough, quiet enough, or respectable enough. Taking the high road, especially in the current political climate, taking the high road is done. That goes back to the Black Panther Party thing. I hope that ICE goes into Philadelphia, and I hope the Black Panther Party shows up. Do I want people to get shot and killed? No. Is it going to happen? You better fucking believe it.
It's already happening.
Well, the state has killed people. I'm talking about in the other direction. Do I want ICE agents to get killed? No. Do I think it's going to happen? Oh, fuck yes. I don't see ICE agents going into South Central LA gang neighborhoods.
No.
Because we're all a bunch of pussies. that won't go into a gang neighborhood and say we're gonna deport you at your asses. Yeah, all right. Let me grab my 9mm as I'm walking out of the house to get into my 6.4, and I'm gonna shoot your ass. Because that's gonna happen if they do that shit. But it's something to build. Uh, you know, in the chosen family, um, that shows when blood family won't fail. I mean, today, stop waiting for them to say yes. Be the brick, be the shelter, be the positive force in people's lives. Show up when ICE rolls through. I can't arrest all of us if we're too busy building the world that makes them irrelevant. Because that's what we should be doing. Liberation over permission. Hell, Onyx's whole publication. That's all about permission and the fact that you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
I ask myself, Wendy, what permission are you waiting for that you could have been mistaking as prerequisite when it is actually, it's just a preference of my own comfort. There's a flavor of being stuck that disguises itself as responsibility. And so in the trans community, this happens a lot. I can't do X until Y happens. So I have a really amazing story to tell about this. And so there was a girl in the community, and she was a member of my support community. And so, I am a very vocal trans. I've always been a very vocal trans woman. And so we would go to group session. We all sit down in a room together. We all go around the room talking about things. And her big thing was, she did like all of these things that, I can't do any of Y, and Y, and I'll explain, was a number of different things until X happens first. And so what it was she couldn't express herself femininely until she was chemically on hormone replacement therapy. And so that was the gatekeeper. And so, we were a group, and somebody in the group gave her this purse. It's a really cute purse. And I remember looking at her and going, hey, you should walk around with that on your shoulder. No, I can't do that until I'm on hormone replacement therapy. And I literally looked at her and said, why not? And she said, no, I can't do that until I start HRT. And I was like, when did carrying a bag become a prerequisite, a post-requisite for starting chemical, transition or whatever? And so I was always stunned by that. Well, a couple of weeks later, group happened again, and she was in group again, and she was talking about how, I see women in heels and hose and dresses, and I want to do that. I literally stood up and said, great, we leave group. I will walk over with you to Saks Fifth Avenue, and let's go find you a dress and put it on. And she literally looked at me and said, no, I can't do that until I've started HRT. I looked at her and I was like, what?
Self-imposed limitation.
Right. I mean, I just can't reconcile that. And so in not being able to reconcile that, I'm like, hey, do you give a shit about whether a guy or a girl wears you, my clothes aren't answering. So, you know what? I mean, it must. Clothes don't need permission to be worn by an individual. Well, it got worse. So, like months later, she finally started hormone replacement therapy or whatever. And we were all like, oh my God, great. She's on HRT now. Now we can go dress shopping. No. I can't do that until I've had surgeries.
A problem for every solution.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly the point. Because what are you actually waiting for? And if you get quiet and honest, is it a real barrier or is it a reason to stay in your safe zones? You don't have to go out of it, even though you're trying to get out of that space. It's bullshit.
It's just excuses to not have to act.
No,
or not have to do
people,
what you need to do.
I had her asking me, well, gosh, Wendy, you look really good in that dress. And I'm like, yeah, and I've only been on hormone replacement therapy for a year and a half. And, I hadn't had any surgeries yet. Let's go out and go dress shopping. Holy shit. Oh, no, can't do that. So that means now I beg to ask you, if you set aside everything that you've been given access to, degrees, jobs, platforms, tolerances, I ask, what have you actually built with your own hands that would still be standing today? And there's an easy answer to that question too, by the way. Because the statement becomes, what's the difference between what you have accumulated versus what you have created? And why?
What I've accumulated versus what I've created.
Yes. It's not that hard a question.
It seems too simple.
Why?
I don't know. Or maybe it's just too on the nose, I guess.
Why is it too on the nose? If it's on the nose, then that really is the answer to the question.
So then my child.
Why?
I mean, well, I guess if you're adopting, you can accumulate, but I mean, she's the only thing that I've actually created from scratch.
I think you could claim, well, from a makeup perspective, I think you can claim 50% of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the 9 months of gestation has to count for something, though.
Oh, yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. But why? Accumulation is what the system lets you have when you play by the rules. The credential, the permission, the access that can be revoked if you step out of line. The building is entirely different. So when that bird leaves the nest, what is that bird going to do?
Who, Kate?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if she'll ever leave the nest.
But do you think that she would have a positive impact?
Yeah.
Why?
I do.
Why?
She's got a strong sense of social justice. She's well spoken and outgoing and strong. And she'd probably blush heavily if she heard me saying most of that.
Why?
I don't know. Because she probably doesn't see herself that way on some of it.
None of our children do. I mean, half of Gizmo's genetics are my responsibility, and Gizmo is the best thing that I purely contributed to, and not even really I hate using the word thing, but Gizmo's creation was an opportunity where I contributed to that opportunity. And the result of that opportunity is itself beautiful. And beyond everything I could ever have hoped for. And so, yeah, I didn't ask for permission.
Yeah, I think I broke most of the rules creating Kate.
I don't think that's any different than anyone else. You know, you get as much as you give. And if you give negatively, you're going to get negatively back. And, for me, most of my childhood I was a dog tied to a tree. Figuratively, of course. And every morning, my owner, my mother, walked out, picked up a big ass stick, and whopped me over the head with it. And she did that every day in and day out. And when you do that to someone or to an animal, and they're going to hate you. And that layer upon layer upon layer of hate and rage and anger is eventually going to spill over. And when it does, it's never pretty. My problem was when it reached a point where it had spilled over, I self-inflicted all of that anger and hatred and all that negativity and everything else.
I took care of him.
And so, is it that obvious that I was doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, I strive not to do that where Gizmo was concerned. And I was happy. Gizmo is a very independent child. And Gizmo is, a very opinionated, but very much for the justice of others and the kindness of others. And so all of those things, you know.
All right, I can't see that one.
Right. So I'm going to answer that question. Did she hit me enough? Yeah. And then some. Yeah, and then some. And then some more. And then some more. The sad part about it is, you know, and people don't want to hear this, but when I found out that she was dying, I wanted to watch. I wanted to watch so I could see her draw her last breath and know that she was gone. That was the level of my hatred, the level of my anger. Problem was, I was cheated, denied. It's sad that you would say that about the person who birthed you, but it's true. It's completely true. I mean, hell, 80% of the scars I have on my body came from that woman. Like, you don't think that I didn't want to visit that hatred on her? Oh, hell yeah, I did. Carried it around for a long time. I wasn't ever able really to let it go, but it happened that way. So when she left, I didn't get my closure. That's why closure is bullshit. That's why closure is a fucking myth. Because even when you get it, it doesn't help you. Really doesn't. Doesn't help you at all. Not by a long shot. So, but I'm not going to be any more morbid or deplorable about that. Anything to add in final, Sarah?
I thought I had something, but it slipped my mind.
Completely understandable. Want to do this again, one-on-one again?
Sure.
Kira has to listen to us. I'm sure she thinks half the shit that comes out of my mouth is toxic.
Are you still in your live session?
I'm about to end it right now.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody that watched this evening. I appreciate it. Please consider subscribing. ThisOneMoss.com. Always a good place. Daily news digest every morning. Some queer stories when I get to writing them. I mean, I damn near wrote about 150 to 200 of them before I started to slow down. But anyway, Sarah, thank you as always.
Thank you.